And I'm also hitting the go live. How do I hit go live on?
It looks like you are. It says live with the counter.
Does it say live with Instagram yet? We'll figure it out. Okay. Hi, Shannon.
How's it going? Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. It feels like Saturday. It feels like Saturday. I'm going to kick us off with a prayer just because I always feel like a quick one just roots us. Father, thank you for bringing Shannon and I together this Monday and to be plugged into you and your spirit and share what is inside of me to my consciousness of coming out of, I guess we're a few weeks into almost the end of September, but all this post Charlie Kirk stuff as a Christian, as the founder of the Whole Self Leaders movement, and also a mom of two, moving through a lot. And yeah, we're going to be talking about the need for structure and control when God is pulling you towards something so much bigger than you can even fathom or even understand, but you've got to surrender. That's what we're talking about today. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 So what's the structure that you're feeling pulled towards?
Yeah, so I think about this a lot, not only as an entrepreneur for almost 20, 25, 26, 27 years, something like that, but also in coaching high performers to, just my conversations with my girlfriends and other working parents is this in between of innovation and calling. And when the soul cries out, whether or not you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and you're just, how your soul cries out, you hit these periods of your life where God calls you, spirit calls you, soul calls you, like I need to be doing something different. I need to be creating something. I need to be a major change is happening. And there's that sort of paradigm of, because we're not meant to stay the same our entire lives. We're meant to live our life and then expand and grow and change. The only thing consistent in life is change. And yet at the same time, when you are living your daily life, your Monday through Friday, just to get through the week, especially if you're raising kids at home, is the need for structure, the need for automation, the need for just a routine to get done that list, that productivity list. And even if it's like for example, we've got this crazy messy garage, and every day when we drive up to our house, we walk through after soccer practice, after school, after work, and you walk through the messy garage and you're like, at some point I need to clean up this messy garage or otherwise it's going to just drive me nuts. And then every day you plan to organize the messy garage, something pulls you. And it could be, for me, the topics in the last, since school started, was my son's had these GI issues, chronic stomach aches. It really started in probably July, and then school started in August. We're at the end of September, and it just comes and goes, and it's just takes down the whole family. But yeah, that is just one example of, and then every day you get up and you're like, okay, well, this is the week I'm going to get this done. And yet you're thrown off again. So that is what I mean about the in-between of wanting automation to feel normal, to feel productive, and yet life happens or God's whisper happens. And I feel like I'm in between all of that.
Well, it's also about prioritization. And when you think about the big things that you're being called to do and what's on your heart compared to how important is that garage and keeping it clean or organized, really, like in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. And I use that as a metaphor too, like the messy garage, for I've been working with all kinds of scenarios of leaders, and, for example, it could be, one client who has a marketing company, and it's just this volatile feeling of high maintenance clients we're working on her eliminating or letting go of the clients that no longer serve her, and really growing more of, this is what my role model, this is what my ideal client looks like, that respects my time, that respects me, that is healthy for me to be managing. And at the same time, the mountain that is, at the same time, having 2 kids under 5, or two under 5 or 6, and also a middle schooler. And how every day, there's this pressure. Her husband was sick and had, just survived cancer. And, she's been taking care of little ones. She's been trying to get her business to a healthier place, but also thriving financially, because she's covering 2 incomes right now. So that's just another example of, somebody who wakes up every day that, is trying to create order, like, of the messy garage, where every day gets thrown off because of unpredictable things, or there's a grip onto, okay, this has to be in control today so that I can align with my next paradigm, a healthier and better paradigm, my more whole self paradigm. And so I know there's just so many scenarios of, I know you recently in the last year were leaving Florida to move to Georgia, and even waiting for the house to be sold. And like, you're checked out, but you're still physically there. And it's like, okay, I'm ready for the messy garage to just not be messy anymore. Like, give me my clean garage already. So it's just this metaphor too of like these wanting structure and control to have more sanity, but knowing that you're in the midst of a major change, or a journey to a new paradigm that is more healthy and in alignment with who you truly are and what you desire.
Yeah, there's a saying that I like, the shark closest to the body. When you're, it's like you could visualize it in the theater of your mind, where you're in the water and you're surrounded by these sharks, whether it's, helping your son with his stomach, or cleaning the garage, or getting the things done you need to make this big life transition, or this new movement that God's calling you to, or whatever the thing is. And how you prioritize those attacks. It kind of goes back to that idea that you have, Claudia, about running the life like the organization that you lead.
Yeah. And I think that one thing that's really what I feel like I am for and there's two groups where I'm supporting people with whole self leadership, which is this curriculum and really new definition of doing life, of treating your whole self as the organization that you're leading and managing. And it's there's people that are in my community, inner circle, where they are not private coaching with me, but they just come in. We meet the first Tuesday night of every month. And I start off with a message or a lesson, and then we just all share consciousness, like what we're all internally going through, because you're a part of that. And then there's people that I coach one-on-one with. And I think what I just try to, I think this journey of life, which is consciousness, right? Because really being alive, whether you get to live 80 years, hopefully 90, 100 years, but maybe for some, who knows, right? We never know what can happen tomorrow. So, but this journey of life is this journey of consciousness and awareness. And what I always remind all of us is that whether I'm working with somebody individually or we're working and talking as a community, is to really get aware of your inner programming and the thoughts and the emotions and the beliefs that you are consuming every single day. So there's up to 60,000 thoughts a day. The average human, you can Google it and research it. Some say 40,000 thoughts, but generally there's a lot of thoughts that we have, the average human has in a day. And 95% of that is brain activity is unconscious. And Joe Dispenza is my number one teacher on neuroscience and programming and the story we tell ourselves. But it's just to remember that, like, whoever's listening to this right now, whatever you're moving through in wanting that structure and automation and certainty, with maybe a bigger pull of that thing in your life that you're like, oh gosh, I just can't wait until I can finally get here, or finally create that thing, or when I finally make that amount of money, or get that investment, or my kid goes to college, or whatever chapter, like whatever you're looking to get to, and yet you're in that new paradigm, and yet you're in this old paradigm of just getting thrown sideways and getting knocked off your feet again, or you feel like you're starting at ground zero again, or life just feels messy, is just to know that you have a choice in that moment to get conscious of the story you're in. And that's where you almost do apply. Okay, let me back out for a second. It's September, almost the end of September 2025. This is the big dream and the big, like, soul pull of what it is that I have been visioning and desiring or wanting. And sometimes that's a simple thing, right, for some of us, or sometimes it's a bigger thing. And yet you're here. But if you could just pause and step back and be like, what are my patterns of content here? And my patterns of okay, I have been waking up in the middle of the night up to 3 times. Like, I have a newborn baby again with a son that's like crying, of like screaming stomach aches, and trying to make sense of with a million doctor's appointments, pulling him out of school, to my daughter's also going through this socially in 2nd grade, feeling like she doesn't belong in 2nd grade and emotionally communicating things to me. And, just the throes of that, and then how big of a deal that is. And that feels like, in the moment, it feels like such a big deal, and it's all encompassing. And then you're like, oh my gosh, it's a mess. The house is a mess. We're a mess. And then you feel so detached from this dream and this paradigm that you've worked so hard to get to, but then you keep on getting pulled back. And so those are the moments of true inner consciousness and leadership.
That sounds so familiar to me, Claudia, because
I know.
that's so similar to what I feel like I was going through last year. So it's interesting that now you're going through it, and I'm sure that there's so many people who are listening that are also resonating with that idea of it seems like all of these challenges are being thrown at you all at once.
Yeah, I think about a dear, just a variety of people in my community, and like one person has been on a journey through IVF, and like career is amazing, but like there's just this one, like nothing matters at this point, but like this pregnancy journey. Mm-hmm. I think about another person in my community, her and her husband were on a journey of just felt the God call of adopting after having 2 kids of their own, but just felt this massive call to adopt. And that was probably a 3 or so year journey of like getting, putting so much of your heart and soul, you're so invested in it. It's so emotionally taxing, financially, just trying to prepare and anticipate. And yet you just feel it's like whether like we're talking about kids right now and birthing, or becoming a parent, and how that's such a soul emotional heart call, or a God call or a spiritual call. And yet what you invest in it emotionally, and then to be disappointed or to be thrown off again into a chaotic situation. And I think about specific clients who got physically ill in a journey where their career was soaring, and it's just been such a effort to just climb back up and even feel healthy day to day, and yet get pulled back down because of she got really sick over COVID, and just autoimmune stuff happened, and it's just been a journey since she's a single mom. And so, yeah, I have male clients who are running companies that are, I would say I have one that runs a mortgage company, and I say, you're like a trader, you're a stock trader. Like every single day you go to work and it is just busy. It's just everybody wants a piece of you. And it's like calling up this person and that person and managing that person and that person. And like there's certain jobs and certain professions out there that just feel like you're like a Wall Street trader. You don't even have a second to breathe. And then at the end of the day, you're like, whoa, like what just even happened? And then, you're struggling to, in certain seasons, just keep afloat because the economy is bad and interest rates are high or down, and then at other minute, you're like, whoa, I've been doing this for 10 years and I don't like my life anymore. It's so, again, we can all look so perfect on the outside and we can all look so together on the outside, but you just have no idea what messy garage, what area of a life that they walk into when they get home every day, or they lie down every day and they're like, this does not make me feel good about myself. And they attach their identity to it and they judge themselves for it. And they're like, what happened to me? And how is this not solved yet? Like, why can't I solve this or clean this mess? And yet those are the moments where we have to truly, again, get with God and get out of our unconscious programming and plug into God, who is like your advisory board, the highest of advisors, and listen to the bigger plan that God has and is working on and devising and creating in that moment. And that's when we get conscious. When you get into God, that's when you start shifting from unconscious to conscious.
I'm thinking about those 60,000 thoughts a day that you mentioned, and those different scenarios that you mentioned, and the types of things that people are thinking in their unconscious. What I would think in my unconscious in those busy seasons. And it's I think the CLTs, like the core limiting beliefs of when everything's happening at once and you feel like you're in that tornado and one other thing just happens. And I remember I used to hear myself say in my unconscious, like, I can't. And that's one of the things that now that I've built the muscle and I'm moving into consciousness, and I catch myself saying, when I say I can't. And
give me an example of when the I can'ts would pop up.
Just when everything's happening all at once, when you have the messy garage, and on top of just having a to-do list that's a mile long, and then you get hit with an unplanned interruption, or a shark that's closer to the body than all those other things that you have to get to, or something goes wrong, something unexpectedly goes wrong.
I remember when you literally just moved into your house, you're in Georgia. And I remember when your son, and I think it was maybe like right before he started school, got was it the flu? Was it strep throat? It was just this back to back. And then you hadn't had the pediatricians were not secured yet. You didn't have the doctors in place yet to get the antibiotics, and you literally have no furniture to eat on.
Yes, that would have been the perfect example of just like, but when I say I can't, then I'm definitely not going to be able to handle whatever challenges are coming my way if I'm literally telling myself that in my self-programming.
Yeah, and I think that's a message today, is that I do say in the Whole Self Leaders, in our movement, in our membership, and in the course videos, is that we have to realize and become aware that we are run a program, a content programming, whether we call it a magazine, a book, a computer, is literally in our mind and brain every single day. We can wake up, and also neuroscience, the facts say that about 90% of what you think about is repetitive every day. And really we could skew negative. I think they say 80% automatically skews negative. And unless you're one of the unicorns or the rarities where you're just naturally, like, your trauma is actually to be too positive all the time, is that, it's really human that to like, as humans, to be aware that a program runs inside of us. And when you say CLTs, it actually stands for core limiting thoughts, for those that haven't heard that acronym, or CLB is core limiting beliefs. And if you go to claudiachan.com, on the homepage, we have, I think it's 9 or so of the most common core limiting thoughts, or what we call the symptoms of this invisible epidemic. And that's really what the Whole Self Leaders work is, to get everybody aware that there is this invisible epidemic, which is our unconscious programming and thoughts, and the story that's running our lives, telling us every day, who we are, what to think about ourselves and others. And when we get triggered and something unexpected happens, our automatic responses are automatic. And for you, it used to be, I can't, when it all hits. And that's what I love to do, is I love to sort of like get to know somebody and really get a sense of, that's the first thing I need to know. Give me the world of your programming. Like, I need to know your dreams, but I need to know your current programming. And I also need to know your story of origin and everything about your background and your childhood and everything. But that this is, I know I've really stepped into talking about being a believer of Jesus and being a Christian. And ever since Charlie Kirk was assassinated, I felt just really called and pulled into sharing more about my faith. And because all these decades, and especially, I became, I think I got baptized 15 years ago, and I started going to church 18 years ago when I met my husband, John. It's like a muscle, the consciousness muscle of understanding the programming and the epidemic, the invisible programming. And then, there's God. And let me read verses, and let me go to sermons on Sundays, and let me get more curious and follow this author and listen to that speaker. And, this voice really resonates with me. And starting to build my own, I know you call me an anthropologist, as my chief marketing brand officer, is, Claudia, you've been such an anthropologist, not learning through a traditional like neuroscience degree or PhD or sociology or academics, but really my PhD has been people, and my journey of community and researching and learning from real people, everyday people, to my faith. And and that feels, when I say that this topic today is the need for structure at a time when God's pulling you to something big, that's what I feel right now. And the call that I feel right now is, Claudia, step out and come out. Come out with your faith. All of this work you've done through creating, She Global, a platform that was all about empowering women, diverse demographics, underrepresented groups, to promote equity, inclusion, equality, like all those DE&I words, all those progressive words. And then my journey through faith, being, I guess, considered to my more conservative friends now, that might have been considered a lot more progressive and liberal, but now my journey to faith, and I still feel all those same things. I'm still that same person, yet at the same time, I was not an avid reader or follower or customer of Charlie Kirk, but I discovered him after October 7th and just was like, wow, he is really bold about his love for Jesus. He's really bold about getting everybody to get to church and learn about Christ and learn about that history. And I was like, that's impressive, And then when he got assassinated, it just felt like, wow, like you had just attacked somebody who was such a spokesperson and again carried the torch for me as a believer. So now I'm full on sharing my Christianity with the world, and that just feels like such a pull and massive calling and direction now, yet I'm in my messy garage. And also massive feelings of discomfort, by the way, in so many places, because my best friends in the Northeast or New York, who've been such a, who I've impacted their lives, and we've impacted each other's lives so much, but I feel like they're seeing a side of me that they don't really understand right now. So yeah, it's a really, as we call it, an inner tornado of a experience, yet with so much clarity because of God.
Claudia, you've worked with hundreds of leaders, top performers, and you've seen them go through so much change, just like you're going through change, or like you said, it's the only constant in life. And when there are these callings to something bigger, I mean, you've seen so many data points. You have seen so many patterns. Is it ever easy to go into something bigger? Is it ever just an easy transition? I feel like it's always met with challenge.
Well, you and I, when we were doing our coaching work, we talked a lot about, what do they say, that the greatest skill of the 21st century, as we think about wrapping up with the first quarter of the 21st century, and I'm really focused on the second quarter with our Whole Self Leaders movement and teaching whole self leadership and getting whole inside, is the greatest skill is actually living with uncertainty. And I think that that's what's happened historically. If you look at a lot of, well, especially with my Gen X generation and probably the older, millennial generation. And I know my parents' generation, the baby boomer generation, of you're coming from so many, whether you're part Asian, Chinese or Japanese or Korean, or you're from, you have ancestors or grandparents that were born in Africa or the Middle East or Germany or whatever part of the world, and how there's always this, everybody comes from the stories that were passed down of that generational trauma, right? Where just surviving, everybody I think probably has a grandparent that lived through some war. And so this 21st century, this cultural norm that's been established of, yes, go to a good school. Like our grandparents to our grandparents worked so hard to get us to go to a good college and to get a good job and become a lawyer, become a doctor, become a banker, work for a corporation, get a W-2, build your 401k. And there's just this standard where this is what you do, and this is going to guarantee certainty. This is going to be certain, and you're going to be more safe, and you're going to build that 529 kids college plan, and build your, build your retirement fund, and this is the most secure thing to do. And I think we don't realize how much we've been programmed to basically say this is the only way, and this is the secure way. And there's such a need, I think, the essence of human beings, like, there's something about not knowing, but what if I can't pay my bills and I can't stay in this home that I live in? Or what if I'm not making, like, I'm not getting a promotion, and my title is not getting better after this for 3 years? And like, what if the what ifs? And what if my kid can't go to, the zip code with the good public schools? And it's like we're so pulled into that what if and that uncertainty and that fear that it takes all the energy away from any innovation we could possibly have to create something. And so I think, when I think about my faith, God, when you think about the Bible, and I did a post on this on my Claudia Chan Instagram, is that the Bible actually is not a book of teaching you to be safe. The Bible is a book of teaching you to have courage, and to be courageous, and to be bold, and to go out and represent something different, and to not, like, that it's not your will be done, it's God's will shall be done. And we're actually here, we're meant to, I think the way that I've transformed my life is well, to answer your question, I believe that we need a whole new trend, if you will, that is a part of the Whole Self Leaders trend. Is, our mission is to really coach and support people to be more powered by faith than by fear or need for control of certainty. And what society tells you, oh, you can't be out of work for a year because then you're never going to be able to get back in, or all these lies that the system programs you to believe. And so we want to support a new generation and create a new generation of leaders that takes pauses to really get clear and spend time to discover themselves, and to listen to their soul and call to create and to heal, what's been holding them back, and what's been unhealthy, and what they've buried, to even discover what's been buried, and they've just been so chronically busy to avoid, or consciously or not. And so, yeah, it's hard, but that's where God is so amazing. It's like, you've got to go through the hard to step into something more than you could have ever imagined. And that is a verse, by the way, is which I can't remember off the top of my mind, so we'll have to post it on social. But these are all messages in the Bible. Is remain in me, and I will remain in you, and all that you desire, I will support. And what I have for you is more than you can imagine. But if you're willing to walk this invisible journey path with me. And that's the problem, is everybody wants things visible. And it just, life and innovation, I think the greatest innovators, the greatest creators who do the impossible and disrupt, like, those are all the people that walk down the invisible.
Wow, I agree. With all of the reinvigoration of, I think, people coming back to church and being inspired these last few weeks to reignite their relationship with faith, what can they do? What do you what do you recommend for people who feel that calling or that inspiration? I know you've mentioned some apps before, or what are ways that people can help get conscious, or like you said the last time we touched base, that kind of spiritual yoga outside the studio?
Yeah. Well, I mean, well, the first thing is that I say we created a whole curriculum around this, which is called Whole Self Leadership. And I would say if you go to claudiachan.com, and there's a world of content there of just getting you conscious of the invisible epidemic of chronic busyness and just the day-to-day. I need to clean the garage. I need to clean the garage. I got to make sure I got to get to the doctor's appointments, and I got to make sure set up those play dates for my daughter to make sure that she's feeling like she belongs. And yeah, we got to pay that bill, and we've got that massive deadline that's coming up for work, and we've got all the day-to-day stuff. When you're like, oh, thank God it's Friday, or I thought it was, can you believe it's the end of September when it was just August? And the same things we say over and over again. It's always going to be like that, by the way. Sure, you might get a season of just pure automation and flow. It's just like, oh, wow, there's no major bomb happening right now. Life is good right now, right? But that never lasts. I mean, you might get a few hurricanes here in Florida, or, but I think just like getting aware of building this outer world of chaos and outer world of news and tragedies, and like that's all going to continue to happen. But the one thing that you can control is really building that inner foundation, and stepping in as a leader of your inner self and a leader of your whole self, and treating yourself like I would say like you're your career. Like your soul is your career. Your inner like discovery and research journey, like stepping into this research journey of the self. And it's like just a way you go get, a master's degree in something, or whatever it is. It's like, this priority needs to be at the top of the list, next to every, like it's just got to go to one, or like at the top one or two things on your list, because you are the one that takes care of everybody else. Right. But it's like treating yourself as the organization that you're leading, and starting to research, use my site to just get a certain amount of just guidance. But that is the journey to explore within. So if you're a marketing professional, if you're a fashion designer, whatever you do, or if you're a teacher, it's like, this is your next project, is you. And start thinking, what do I think about every day? What are my standard patterns of negative thoughts? What do I think my invisible barriers are? What are the bombs that keep on popping up in my life? And what have I been wanting to do that I've been ignoring? And what has my soul, like, what does my soul even tell me? And just to go through that reflection. And I would say, this is why our movement exists. I've got a framework that's rooted in I-hacking, which the imagination, the healing, alignment, and creation. There's a 4-step journey. So I would just say, take a look at my site and DM me on Instagram, like hello, and send me info. And we can connect with you. But there's plenty to first just start doing and thinking about, just by listening to this episode and going to our site. But I think the number one piece is, you are your first priority, because everything is going to come out of you. And we're so focused and obsessed with the garage, with cleaning the garage and the automation, and checking, okay, if my son does miss 20 days of school in the first 3 months of school, so be it. And so that we're not focused. We put so much value and energy and time and money on the outer, when the root of the inner is not optimized and not clear. We're reactionary and not proactive. Oh,
Yeah.
and I do want to say this one piece too, Charlie. There was one video that I saw where his wife would randomly say to him when they were like at a coffee shop or just walking, they're, walking with their kids. And she would say, what wisdom do you want to share today? Or just something like that. And he said, one thing I heard him say was, speed does not matter if you're moving in the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm.
Speed does not matter if you're moving in the wrong direction. And so that's why I always talk about slowing and the power of slow. That it's a false sense of security, I think, speed. And I think our body, it's like, I've never done cocaine, but I have to imagine it's this addiction to productivity and efficiency. And we're so caught up in the addiction to that because our nervous system is like used to those chemicals of cortisol, that when you're not in it, it's like, what's going on with you? And meanwhile, you need to actually slow down and clear your plate, clear your mind of those to-do lists and those tasks so that you can get clear on the inside and with God, in order to then know whether or not what direction or what new direction or side or additional streets you need to add to the current direction that you're in. And that's what I mean.
I agree. I think anything worth doing is always going to be hard. I don't think anything worth doing is easy. There's always challenges, and the most beautiful change comes from challenges or doing the hard things.
Yeah, and to remember that when you're in the moment of the hard.
Yes, which is
always,
not easy.
There's always, then that's the consciousness, and I think we're going to close this with this, one of my favorite quotes from Mark Mincolla. He's become a friend, but he is an author of a book called The Way of Miracles. I actually don't know if he's a Christian or not. He's just a spiritual teacher, and he's a natural foods medicine doctor, and he's seen tens of thousands of patients and over the years, and he's witnessed tons of miracles. And I want to say he's in his 60s or maybe even 70. I'm not sure, but that book, Way of the Miracles, remember I gave you a copy of it when I saw you a year ago, and he says everything is either in resistance or it's in flow. Those are the two. You're either in resistance or you're in flow. And I think that's like when you say the things are going to be hard, like everything worth doing is going to be hard. Yes. Like in this moment of the resistance, like when Jackson's getting up in the middle of the night and it's it's like you're hit so hard because he's in pain, and it hurts you to hear him and hurting. But then you're also, you're going to get a bad sleep. You're going to wake up groggy. Your next day is basically ruined, and you're already anxious about tomorrow because, again, we feel this constant sense of being behind or having to keep up with that large to-do list. Is that in that moment of struggle and hardness is the resistance. But then we can choose in that moment, and that's when we find God and get back into flow. Because then it is just taking that breath in and just taking God in and just saying, God, you are in control, not me. Why am I trying to control? Like this is still privileged problems. This is first world problems. This is a blessed problem. This is nothing compared to the atrocities and other things in the world. And that this is your will, not mine. This is your plan for me, not mine. And sometimes when mishaps happen, there are messages on having to manage something better, right? Okay. And I'll get on it. I'll focus more on his diet. And is he lactose intolerant? And I'll talk to more doctors. Like, what do I need to better manage so that this messiness doesn't continue to recur? And yet I can get back into flow doing that and not stay in resistance. So I do think that this is where, and this is why if you go to the Claudia Chan movement, and it is at the root of what I want our community in is plug back into peace, plug back into God, like, or your spirit, like just to get back into flow. And like let go of that stronghold and that grip, of misery and stress that you're just like gripping onto. It's like, just let it go and give it to God and get back into peace. Yes, this is not easy. Yes, this is hard, but we will get through this like we get through anything else. And then you get back into purpose and you get back into your courage and you get back into God. And so again, in any moment, am I in resistance or am I in flow and back in God? And that's just moments, tiny little moments of regulating ourselves and rewiring our ability to reprogram.
Build the muscle. Love it. Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you, my dear, dear Shannon. And till Thursday. Oh no, Wednesday. We'll be back on at around this time. So I'm excited to keep this conversation going.
Sounds good. Likewise, Claudia.
Bye.
Bye.